also being in a relationship where, we both add value to the relationship.
Okay.
So somebody is not going to be more heard of than others because what society say, you got to play the back role because the X, Y,
You got to be
Z.
submissive.
But submissive is like what? Define that. Everybody always have their own interpretation of what submissive is.
Yeah.
Submissive is.
Yeah.
But submissive is really saying, well, I'm honoring. We both have to be submissive to each other, right? In order to help each other understand what each other needs are.
So the man got to be submissive too.
Yeah, because the thing is, so if you submissive, both of us submissive together to the bigger cause, which is our relationship, our mission, then we get there faster.
Hold on, she dropping bars out here. Submission to the mission.
Yeah.
Hey, what the name of this show?
I Talk Great.
I Talk Great.
Are you ready to take your podcast to the next level? Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, the AV Club is the perfect place to bring your vision to life. The space is designed for creators like you with high quality cameras, microphones to ensure your podcast sounds amazing every time. Plus, our environment makes it easy to focus and feel at home while you record. From solo recordings to group sessions, we've got you covered with flexible booking options. So go ahead and visit www.theavclubstudios.com to schedule your session now. The AV Club Studios, where your voice gets heard. Let them know Mr. Williams from the I Talk Great podcast said so. Yeah. Y'all already know what it is. It's Mr. Williams with the I Talk Great podcast, where we talk about the gray areas of business and life because it's never just black and white. I got a heavy hitter in the building. My girl Flo up in here.
How are you?
I'm doing phenomenal. How you doing, Queen?
I am well. Glad to be here.
Yes.
Excited for this conversation.
No, of course. I had to bring you in here. I've been seeing you around. You at every single event. We keep bumping into each other. And I'm like, hold on, this girl, Tommy, I don't know what you do for work. And, we met up. And I'm not going to lie. You got in my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on? This girl got some skills.
Yeah.
So I had to go ahead and get you on so you could educate the people.
Okay.
But for people who don't know, just let everybody know, like, what do you do? What's your background? And what got you to where you're at now?
Okay. Well, thank you for the invite. My name is Florence Gaspard, AKA Flo for Florence.
Okay.
I am a life and business strategist. That's the way I can put it, a consultant, So I have my psychological experiences, being a therapist for 10 years. And so, sometimes what happens is that life speaks to you. And then it was that little pebble that was like, there's more, and I follow that voice, I follow that path. And so it allowed me to recreate myself where I fuse psychology, mental health with business because I was always into business, as a little girl, so this
Really?
Correct.
What was your first business as a little girl?
Selling candy and chips.
Really?
School.
Okay,
Absolutely.
you was hustling.
I was hustling.
Wow.
No,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
So that kind of evolved because the thing is too, I was asking my mom. I often ask my mom for money, and she was like, I'm just how are you asking for money? Here's a bag of lollipops, and then from there I went to sell lollipops, and I sold it. I'm like, oh, okay, and then this is where the light bulb goes, kind of light up for me.
Wow,
and then
I
from
love
there,
that.
it kind of scaled to, okay, let's go make chips, let's go sell drinks.
Yeah.
And it kind of, but then, I still went to traditional route because my parents wanted me to, go through my education.
Okay.
Got my degree, my master's in mental health.
Nice.
Worked, like you say, as a therapist for many years in the social service industry. But then, like you said, I felt like it was a calling for me to go and speak and educate people what I've known. And during that time, I also was. But we spoke in our previous conversation, going through this period of feeling like I was awakened. I was evolving into like a different space, and then I started investing more in my spiritual walk. And then so then, with my findings, I was like, people got to know a lot of these things because often we don't even, take time to understand our own journey, who we are, that we evolve, like who you were, like even a year ago is not the same person.
We should evolve.
Oh, we should
Let's
evolve.
let's say that because
absolutely.
I ain't
Living
gonna
things
front.
evolve.
Yeah. I like living things evolve. So then what would you say to the people that are living and not evolving?
You mean The Walking Dead?
Yo, that's so true. Did you see that show?
Yeah. Well, I know of the show. I really haven't delved into it like that, but I know of it.
I think that's a real thing. Like,
yeah, we do.
It's crazy that you say that.
Yeah, we on autopilot a lot of times, and this is where it happens because we've been conditioned by society to say this is what you need to do, this is who you are, this is what you, and then so we never really pay attention to the voice that of what our bigger self wants, our higher self, the self that's connected to God, that tell us,
yes,
no, you have a different plan, you have a different pathway, and so. And many times people hear those voices, but we just don't pay attention to it, or we don't follow it. We ignore it.
Yeah.
And then what happens, it get bigger and bigger and things, until it gets your attention, so to speak. You know? And so this, again, it goes reflecting back to my story, So when I started to pay attention, it's like, hey, I saw the output of what I envisioned, which is, going around speaking to people, empowering people. I didn't have a title or a label, when I was in social service, but I just feel like it was more.
But what made you even say you wanted to go into social services? Was it something that happened in your childhood? Like, what was, like, take us back there. Like, where are you from originally?
I was raised in Miami, Florida. So I went
to college. So you was born
college.
In the crib? You from the crib?
I'm from the crib.
Okay.
I was raised
Is that where your
Florida.
background is from?
Well, I'm Haitian American.
Okay.
No, absolutely. So the thing is, too, I went to college, actually, for becoming a pediatrician. I always thought I was going to be a pediatrician.
Okay.
I took pre-med when I first entered FIU. That's where I went to school.
Okay.
And I went my junior year, my sophomore year. I did all the way up to my junior year until I took a psychology class. And it was something intriguing by the psychology class, where it was just a different shift that it allowed me to see, wow, it is something there that resonate with me, understanding why people do what they do, understanding people's human behavior, their mental health, subconsciously, our conscious behaviors.
Yeah.
So, and then I tried to do both degree, and today we're like, hey, you got to stay longer in school. I was like, nope, negative. We're not going to do that.
So we got to pick one.
We're not going to do that. And so I picked psychology, and I never looked back since. So
now it's making sense on how you could get in mind.
No, absolutely, because I always resonate in terms of like why people do what they do.
Yeah.
But being a doctor was, especially in the Caribbean, you got to be a doctor.
Yeah, you got to be a lawyer.
You're a lawyer,
so
and I bought into it, that's what I wanted to do. I think that was what I wanted to do until, like you say, I was introduced something else, and then I was like, oh, this speaks to me stronger.
Yeah.
Let me explore that, And it was a hesitation because then I have to go back and say, hey, Dad, Mom, I changed my major.
Yeah. But you could still be a doctor as a psychologist, right? You can get your PhD.
No, absolutely. But, my thing was, physical health.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I did the whole thing, the biology, the chemistry, et cetera. Statistics when I crossed over to biology, to do mental health.
Yeah.
And then again, like you said, I graduated. I went to do my master's in the space of psychology. And then I just kind of worked from social services since, and I work in all facets. I work in a school. I work in the hospitals. I work for nonprofit, for-profit. So it allowed me to be very flexible in the settings I was in, and deal with people from all over, no matter what their socioeconomic status were, and so I picked up a lot of skills. And again, and then during, that course, this is where I can say the awakening period happens, where I was like, there's more, and I know there's other people that knows there's more, and so this is when I started to do my own personal branding, and I became, like, hey, I need to put a book out. I had this burning desire to put a book. I never wrote a book, and what I did was Google who did it. I read about it. I watched about it. And I tell people you don't have to know how to do something in order to figure it out. What I did, I figure it out.
Yes, it is figure outable.
And that's what life's about. Life's about figure things out. Because so many times people say, "Well, I didn't have the support. I don't have this. I don't have that." Well, many of us didn't have a lot of things.
No, you're right.
But you just got to figure out who has it, or where can I get it. And so when we start asking how versus just being limited to it's not there, then we change the conversation and we change the energy of what find us. So
and that's mindset too.
Correct.
So speaking that you're saying that, right, like that whole support, right? Do you think it's important to buy black, or are you in the mindset of like, hey, I'm just buying wherever that the service is good?
Well, that's a loaded question. The thing is too is that I don't necessarily pigeonhole to be just buy black, just business. If you're a business owner, you're a business. You're in the space to sell whatever you're selling.
Okay.
Whatever product and services.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know that there's a disproportionate ratio among Black, among other, ethnicity when it comes to businesses.
Yeah.
So we pay a little intentional special attention to it, but not pigeonhole because I'm Black that, that define me. No, I'm the first of all, no outside label define me. Period. Child of God.
Okay,
that's the label.
All right,
that just
happened. Clap it up for that. Okay.
Now let's do that. And then so the services I provide or the products is what I provide. But it's not my identity.
So you're saying you don't see color, you just see green.
I mean, it's hard to say you don't see color, you only see green per se. But the thing is, so you don't let it define you. That's not what you were. You're not your labels. You're not the what you possess. You're not, you're not what you sell.
Yeah.
And things of that nature. So what I'm saying is, even though I know. I intentionally go sometimes, support small business, Black business intentionally.
Yes,
I acknowledge that,
yes.
But I don't pigeonhole to say because you're Black, that's the only thing that describe whatever the transaction is, What about just being business, just being an owner and knowing like, hey, you know what? I'm a business owner. I'm going to provide the best services in general.
Yes.
I think I saw a clip recently. Somebody was going off about like, about Black business and like, I don't care if you're Black.
That was Wallow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I asked you.
Yeah, they're like, your service not good. If you're, if your product is not in good quality, why should I supply that?
I see two sides to that though, because I get what you're saying too. Of course, you do want to look at things just as business, right? Because I do think when you stay like focused just on color, you can kind of look at things like from a victim type of mindset.
Well, it's limitation, but not to say it's not intentionality, because it goes back. It's just like small business versus big corporations.
Yeah.
So if you're like, hey, I'm supporting small business, that's intentionality. Say, I see the need. You need to be supported, and I'm gonna do my part to support you.
Yeah.
So I think it's a hybrid, hybrid conversation.
Because a lot of other races, they, I'm not sure if you've heard that, like, if this race is spending money, they're making sure they're spending money within their race first,
correct.
at least 6-7 times.
Correct.
Versus if a Black person is spending money, it's out of our hands or out of our community the first time we spend it.
Correct.
You know what I mean? But I do believe that, like what you just said, hey, if it's a business, let's just do business. But seeing like you've helped businesses and organizations and things like that, have you had any pushback because you're a woman of color?
I mean, if there were, I don't pay attention to it. Again, and I get, especially in certain places, like I have friends that's like are in real estate or
because I see you around.
Yeah,
where there don't be Black people.
Of course, because I don't see that.
Okay.
Not to say it doesn't exist, but the thing is, I think whatever you feed grows. So if you feed that I am, I'm different and I don't belong here or whatever it is, then you attract that energy. Then
okay. No, I get what you're saying.
And then your perception tend to be limited because you tend to focus on that. So no matter what your thoughts about me, that's not my problem, and that's not my business.
Yeah,
that's your thoughts.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna, so I can't carry your cross of whatever your limitations are. But the thing is too is that I know like what I bring to the table. I know my value, and I'm gonna show up, and whoever resonate with that will resonate with that. And if it's not your cup of tea, that's fine too.
Yes.
So, but I don't. Again, I don't put. I tend to not put a lot of limits to things because I think that.
No, I like that.
Being very intentional of wanting more and doing more and being more, in terms of like more attracting more quality. If you focus on quality, everything else kind of fall to side. If anything, So I mean, if you say so, going back to your question, if you say do I get pushed back to certain things being a woman?
Yeah, a Black woman.
Yeah, I mean you get judged, but again, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
If anything, I feel sad and sorry for you that you have such a limitation of how you view others that you're missing out.
Yes, no, that's true.
So I tend to not carry other people's crosses.
Okay. No. I totally understand that because what do you like? What's your take? Because you have strong energy. So do you feel like you get that? Like, hey, your energy is too big. Because I know you deal with a lot of organizations, right? So have you ever felt where they try to say, well, hey, you're a woman, you shouldn't have this much, oomph.
Again, I don't pay.
Or okay.
The thing is, whatever you say, what you think your version of what I should be doing or look like or act like, got nothing to do with me.
Okay.
So I don't. So even if you show up like that, I don't buy into it. I don't have to buy what you're selling.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I like that.
So if you don't feed that, it doesn't grow. It kind of, and I think we had a conversation where, for example, like I'll be in spaces where they say just white males.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say, okay, they probably like, oh, who's this little girl just walking in?
Yeah, coming in here, trying to get in my head.
Correct. So then, but the thing is too, I when we start having conversation about whatever is at hand, they realize, oh, okay, you know something.
Yeah. Okay. She know her stuff.
And then the script flip where sometimes I get called from same person with the limitation, like, hey, how do you figure this out? What are your thoughts? Now they're asking me for advice, but initially they didn't feel like I have it.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, when you're an anomaly in spaces, I even told some of my friends, my female friends, like that spaces that's more male dominated or whatever, you become the minority. You get to train people how to interact with you, if that makes sense, right? Because they don't have the skill sets and the exposure of knowing who who you are, what you bring. It's just based on whatever preconceived notion that they have in their own heads, right?
Yeah.
So, but I came to redefine based on whatever you have. But whatever you have had nothing to do with me. But how you experience me currently, this is me. This is me fully showing, being authentically, present in the space. And when you show, and I think if you be yourself, you show authentically, you just connect with people.
Yes, no, that's true.
Even if they don't even thought they were going to connect with you, they do connect with you.
Yeah.
So my big energy is just my big energy. And if it's okay if you can't digest it, but again, it's not an issue for me. Was it always that way, or is it something that you grew over time?
I say I grew over time. Like you said, the more I think, the spiritual walk of knowing self, it allows you to be more comfortable with who you are, because then you understand that your validation doesn't come from men. Right.
So I know I'm a queen.
Yeah,
I like that.
The daughter of the Most High.
Yes.
So that means that everything is available to all of us. So the only thing why we don't make it available, is because either we'll allow people to tell us it's not available. We already think ourselves that we don't deserve access to it based on our mindset or limitations, and I guess other things that fall in between that. But like you said, when you walk with confidence, knowing like who you are, you was created to do more things purposely and on purpose. There's a reason you're here.
Yes.
And like you said, your validation is not from men. Then you just move differently.
Yeah.
You think differently. You seek different ways. So you're not out there just say, hey, let me see, let me get validation of what somebody think about me.
Yeah.
More so, let me show you who I am.
Exactly.
So I changed the script where it's not what you tell me who I am, but I'm telling you who I am.
I like that.
Yeah.
So would you consider yourself an alpha woman?
I know these alpha males or whatever.
It's out here. So I'm like, I had to ask, like.
I don't identify with labels. I just keep going back at that. I mean, so just because, again, you can have strong, personality that's necessarily alpha, but, and I think people.
So you don't agree with that, even with men?
I think people have their own personality. You have men who are more assertive or aggressive.
Okay.
And then you have those who aren't. The same way you have more, you have females that's more aggressive and assertive, and you have those who are just more docile, more in the back. So people are who they are. So I try, like you said, not to labelize everybody or who they are. And the thing is, somebody might start off this way and not end up that way. So again, you never pigeonhole, what you think someone should be. Or
so you don't like labels?
No, not necessarily. No, I mean, and I get it's it's our way to kind of like process and organize, things. We like to figure out this, order.
Yeah.
But again.
So would you go 50-50?
In relationships?
Yeah.
Again, I don't even, because what's 50-50? Because 50-50 could mean look differently though. 50-50 in what? Like tasks, money, like it's not like what's that exactly mean? What about just, everybody's showing 100, but it looks differently.
Okay.
Because again, we go back to like love languages or whatever. Conversation happens. But what you may need may not what I need, but understand what you need and you understand what I need, that's where the connection is. This is where the communication comes in. This is when the work comes in. You know, so
would you pay a bill during the dating phase, like if y'all are going out on a date?
Yeah.
Wow, because I was always told like if she paid a bill, she don't like you like that.
Some women think like that. No, but I feel like if first, especially if someone is always treating, it's or always how you call it, treating.
Yeah.
Why you're
okay? You would take out the Amex.
Yeah. Why would you want to allow this person to also feel like, hey, I got you too.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying?
Y'all hear that, ladies? I like that.
I got you too. So, yeah, because again, people who are like, oh, you must do that. No, nobody must do nothing. Let's get that straight. People do whatever you want.
Oh, Lord, I like that. Nobody must do nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like how you choose to flow with it.
Well, yeah, you choose people based on, your perspectives.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time what we do, we try to force people to buy into what we believe.
Yeah.
Until we realize that's not the right move.
Okay.
Find somebody who already believe what you believe. It just make it more easier
I like
to
that.
work
Hold on.
through
We
it,
on
Yeah.
that. Yes, find somebody who already believes
what you believe. You don't have to force anyone to do anything against the will, Yes, given that I'm a very intentional woman, and my energy is really,
Yeah, I ain't gonna front.
So so whoever, like you say, if the partner I have to be that, like
yeah,
strong,
it has to be like
sense.
Obama.
I guess, but in terms of like 10 toes
yeah.
too,
yeah.
not timid, not very timid by just society or anything,
yeah.
confident in their own skin.
Yes.
So the same thing I expect for myself, I expect for,
okay.
the next person as well.
Yeah.
So, when you're like, okay, but if he's a generous person, of course, so you generous with me, I generous with you.
Okay.
That's okay.
So if you're in the household setting, right, and you're cooking, would you take out your husband's plate first or the kids?
Oh, my goodness. Does it really matter?
Some people take that into offense. Like, hey, I'm working all day. I'm bringing home the bacon. My plate need to be taken out first.
But, that's more ego-driven.
Really?
It is.
Okay.
Because what?
Explain that.
So then your plate is not first, then what? That means you're less than a man?
Yeah, I mean, you're not honoring me. I'm speaking for some of the men.
I know that, but and that for some of the men, that means ego driven because now you're tying yourself into what somebody do,
okay,
whether or not your plate, your plate come first or not, that have nothing to do with yourself, who you are, because that plate is not if that plate is the only thing that define your appreciation in that relationship. Then
it's a piece of showing that hey, because. They say the man is the head of the household. Or do you not see that? Do you see like, hey, everybody's the head of the household, you and the man?
When you say head of a household,
I mean,
right?
Not how you file it on your taxes, but like.
Okay.
Would you look at the man as the head of the household?
I'm not so like role restrictive because sometimes he would lead, and sometimes I might know something that I would lead. So I need somebody that's flexible to like, okay, what's the best situation for us? So it's
that'll allow you to lead.
Huh?
That will be able to allow you to lead.
Correct, because everybody, because if somebody want to do something, there's nothing you can do, right?
Okay.
You can't control other people. And
no,
people who try to control other people is really their subconscious. They try to they feel out of control. The only way they can feel control is by controlling others. But if you're in control of who you are, you don't have any need to control others because your presence and your energy and people would like to do for you because you bring that energy to influence people to like, hey, let me watch out for you because of who you are, because there's a lot of things where I didn't even expect, but people just like, hey, I got you, and like, oh, okay, like
is it because you was able to get in their head? I was about to say.
Or maybe my energy was able to get in there. I don't know. Because sometimes, like you say, your presence, sometimes just the way you move.
Yeah. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Just make people move too.
Yes,
and you may not understand that you're doing that, but
Yeah.
I get time where I don't even know people, and they're like, there's something about you that just draw me to, or et cetera. So that's why I was like, you don't have to push people to do anything. You don't have to force people to do anything. But also being in a relationship where, you know, we both add value to the relationship.
Okay.
You know, so somebody is not going to be more heard of than others because what society say, you know, you got to play the back role because of X, Y,
You got to
and
be
Z.
submissive.
You know, yeah, but submissive is like what? Define that.
I don't know.
Because
I was just about to ask you.
Everybody always have their own interpretation of what submissive is. I mean, submissive is.
Yeah.
But submissive is really saying, well, I'm honoring. We both have to be submissive to each other, right? In order to help each other understand what each other needs are.
So the man got to be submissive too.
It's yeah, because the thing is, so if you submissive, both of us submissive together to the bigger cause, which is our relationship, our mission, then we get there faster.
Oh, she dropping bars out here. Submission to the mission.
Yeah.
Damn. Hold on, let me see your hands. You got a ring on there? She ain't got no ring.
So that's, again, if you're so stuck in terms of like you say, my plate got to be first. I'm like, because you don't know who you are.
Oh, hold on. So if my plate got to be first, you feel like he don't know who he is.
No, because that plate don't define you. Because if that plate defines your
found
position,
a way to get out of that. Yo, we gotta give it to you. Yo,
no, but that plate shouldn't. But I guess, but again, it's because it's a need. It's an underlying need. It's like validate me.
Okay.
But if you already validated that, you know that plate. If you know, like, hey, you know I'm a catch.
Yeah.
That plate. The order of the plate doesn't matter because that person know what you bring already.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I was like, sometimes we get so hung in the wrong things and talk about the wrong stuff. And I hear the social media, and sometimes I be like, are we really having these conversations? But I know a lot of times it's ego driven. You know, it's and because we really
people think like this out here.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
And they still be like stuck in that type of mindset. But the way you're absolutely right. You know, because I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, if you look at my feed and your feed, it's two different things. You know what I'm saying? So depending on what you're watching or what you're subscribing to, you could stay stuck in a certain mindset.
Correct.
You know?
No, correct. You know, and I tell people, if you want to elevate your life, you want to elevate, your surroundings.
Yeah.
Then you got to put yourself in these positions where you're having higher conversation.
Yes, that's true.
Solving more complex problems, because that's how you could train your mind and your body to follow. Because typically our mind already knows often what it needs to do, but sometimes the procrastination might come from our body, right? Because our body store energy, it store memories. So that's why sometimes you'll hear, for example, a woman say, "Oh, I checked out a while back, but my body's still there."
Yeah.
And so they really, when they finally leave a relationship or a situation, often the other person might be like, "Wow, okay, you just
she
got
been
up and
checked
left."
out. Yeah, no, she been left.
Yeah. So the thing is too is that sometimes our body needs time to catch up with our minds. Because our body is flesh. Flesh is weaker. Tend to that's why they're like, if you have a stronger mindset, you can train your body.
Yes.
So that's why But if you learn how to collectively feed again, it goes back, feeding your body. When you feed your body, it's the word you say, the energy that resonate from how you speak to yourself.
Yes.
The food you give yourself,
that's
the
so true.
energy you surround yourself, the people, so all of that is feeding, your body, your mind. So when you feed it the right things to help you elevate, then you start seeing things. Because before outside change, inside have to change. And when inside change, then outside change.
Yes, let's go ahead and drop that. No, you're so right about that. So tell us, how can a person attract the life that they want?
First, you got to identify where you are. And then be clear with what you want. Sometimes we don't even know what we want. So it's hard to attract something where we don't even know what we want. We just know, I'm just not happy. That's not enough. So because the thing is too is that if the thing you think you want, because so many times people might think they want something, they went out, they get it, then we're like, okay, that's it.
Because they want the feeling that they think they'll get from that thing until they get it, and then they're like, hold on.
Now they're out for the next thing.
Yeah.
And it become a pattern. So first, you have to identify, sit with the void. Like, what is that I'm really seeking? What is that my soul, my spirit, my mind, my body is trying to tell me?
Yeah.
And that, a lot of time it comes with stillness, meditate, prayer, things, so go inside, and figure out, and do I really need what I think I need? Because sometimes we might need things out of the void that we have.
Yeah.
But once the void is how you call it, is fulfilled. We no longer need that.
Yeah.
So in order to avoid all of that, you just have to say, okay, let me sit with my true self. What do I really need? Start asking these questions, start feeling. Sometimes our emotions is clues to what we really want. What makes us sad, what makes you happy, what triggers you. So when we follow those clues and we explore them more, then we start getting more information. Because all of these is feeding us information. Now, once you get these information, now you got to put the information together to make out what is that my life you're trying to tell me.
Yeah.
And so if you want to elevate, like you say, start with self-discovery.
Self-discovery.
And self-discovery spiritually. Deeper work. And if you need to go see a therapist, go and do that.
Yeah. I thought you were about to say, holla at me. Do you still do that, or have you fully transitioned over to full business consulting?
Well, it's evolved. I don't do so much the clinical side per se. I mean, I do a lot of life coaching. Okay. Because, when you're doing mental health, it's more clinical because, like you said, I used to deal with people who has bipolar, schizophrenia, in addition to regular people that, for example, gone through certain things like anxiety or depression or things of that nature. But again, when you're working with business and you're talking about the entrepreneur mindset.
Yes, let's talk about that real quick.
That itself it's how do you relate to yourself before you can relate to your others and your customers and your staff and whoever. Like, first you have to have a great relationship with you before you can have any great relationship with yourself. Yeah. I mean, with others,
Yeah. No, so, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So that's why it's, and there's a saying that if you feel like you're limited in your business side, go back to your personal side. So that means that there's certain things that you're limited in your personal side. And once you can unlock that, then you're able to show up differently in your business, and you're going to see how your business grow from there. Because they both need each other, because because you're a business person doesn't mean you just your business. You're not your business.
No, exactly. You start as you first.
Yes, you start your business is something you provide, whether or not it's a product or service. You're providing that, but it's not you. And sometimes we get so we have an identity crisis.
There you go.
Thinking we are our business. No, we're not.
I'm not even gonna lie.
Or work.
Yeah, no. That's one of the reasons why I had to change. Yeah. Not change, but create a separate page. Yeah. Because, every time I went around, people were like, yo, Gray, what up? Gray, what up? Yeah. And I'm like, no, it's Wayne. And I'm like,
the branding.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I got to work on branding. You might help me with that. Cause I know you do that too, right?
Yeah.
But do you suggest people do that right out the gate? Like, how soon should you start creating the personal brand versus the actual brand itself?
You mean your business brand versus your personal? I think your personal brand carry more weight than your business brand. Because think about it. Now, especially in these days, people want to know who's the founder, who's the CEO. They want to know the story behind the brand, right? Because versus if you just a business, for example, if you say Target, okay, but
you don't know who owned that.
Yeah, you don't know what they stand for. You don't know their values for the most speak. I mean, you could go to their page and read their mission or whatever, but there's no real connection. And if you want to contact somebody, they have thousands of customer rap and
exactly.
different. So it's not but when you have a personal brand, you can sell anything. So your personal brand sells everything. So for example, like I think from our conversation we were talking about, I gave an example of like Damon John, coming from Fubu, and then now he's now he's a shark, but his brand as Damon John, his personal brand. Yeah. So whether or not he's selling you a pop, or a system, you buy into his name.
Exactly.
So the thing is, your personal branding, I think, it holds a stronger weight. And then from there, you can influence your community, because your community is the people that's going to resonate with you, that's going to support you in the mission. And then, so whatever you tend to sell, they're going to buy just because, they feel like they have a shared value with you.
Okay.
So that would be my answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you start working with business owners, right, what are like some things that you see that would say, okay, hey, that they're not connected with their personal brand?
First of all, they feel like they are their business. When they realize they can't disconnect from both, they don't know that their personal is different than their business. Okay. So that's the first clue, is like, I am my brand. No, you're not.
Okay.
Your brand is a reflection of who you are. That means, if you're building something, it reflects your value. It reflects your beliefs. or whatever, or the solution you're trying to solve, but it's not you as a person. Because if you're, for example, like COVID was a good teacher to tell us to go sit somewhere, right?
Yeah. No,
on
you're
time
right.
out. Then so your business failed, right? So that means you also gone too. Or you could recreate, or are you the main person, the creator that can go back to the square one and say, let me find something else, or let me create this, or let me bring back this business in a different state. So the thing is that when your business collapses, you should be collapsing too, right? But typically, I mean, we don't collapse, but when we tie our worth and our identity to our business, mentally we do.
Yeah.
But we're not our brand. We're not our business. Our business is a reflection of who we are, but not who we actually are.
Yeah.
So that would be in terms of like, do you understand who you are?
Yeah.
That's the number one thing.
Okay.
And that's both personal and professional. Because if you don't understand who you are, then how can, first of all, you key to what someone else needs? You don't even know your needs, and you with yourself 24 hours. So you try to figure out my needs.
Okay.
Because somebody only meets you in the level they met themselves.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Right? So if you can't, for example, sit with uncomfortable feelings, how are you going to sit with mine? It's going to be harder. Because you haven't learned, you haven't practiced that skill set. You haven't, flexed that muscle to understand, let me be comfortable in the space. Let me master this space. So then when I master this space, when I make a better teacher, of course I would.
Yeah.
So
how'd you get your business acumen up?
Okay. In what aspect?
I mean, how'd you start learning about business? Because I know you said you got your master's degree in psychology. So where did the business?
Well, obviously from the experience, So like you said,
okay, so like trial and error.
Yeah. So like you said, my parents were entrepreneurs.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah, I remember that piece. Okay.
And then and then again, selling candy and chips, school grounds. And then
you're working with organizations now. So how do you get to?
And then, and that's the thing. And then I had a vending machine business.
Okay. So you was hustling.
I did, yeah. And that's the thing. You figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I operated that vending machine business for a couple of years, sold it, and then I got into real estate investing.
Okay.
And then took a pause on that, and then COVID happened. Well, this is where, right before COVID happened, this is when I was building my own personal branding. And like you said, did my book, went on, did tours around the country.
Yeah.
So I'll find opportunities where I could speak on stages, gain visibility in different areas. And then COVID happens, and then it'll allow me and many others to be like, okay, what's next? Let me figure something out, right? And so this is where I was like, hey, and I was getting calls and say, hey, I see what you were doing with your own personal brand. I need help with my business. And it kind of evolved from there because, if you're in a space for entrepreneurs, you get to see a lot of the challenges that they face. If you add value to anything that someone's doing, you'll be valuable. Just add value, So that's how I get into space, building relationships.
Yeah.
Not afraid to, call somebody, approach people. Hey, I noticed X, Y, and Z. Do you ever think about doing W's?
Yeah.
Just offering value, and then people would just say, "Hey, you know what? Help me out." Come on my team, help me out, and then this is where it kind of snowballed into what I do now.
Okay. No. You're so right about that. If you're able to add value, people will always look at you and say, "Yo, we want her in our corner. We want this person in our corner."
Correct.
So, what would you say to people or business owners that hit rock bottom, but then they go up, but then they hit rock bottom again? Like, what?
Inconsistency.
Yeah. So, how would you speak to that? Like, them not having that sustainability. Like, what do you think is the reason behind that?
I think it might be a subconscious limitation somewhere. Could you be surprised how many people I've spoken to that say, "I don't think I deserve success," or they feel like if they do become successful, that their life going to change and that maybe they won't have the same friends they have, or it's just a lot of fears that surround about, hey, if I reach a certain level, it's just not going to, it's not going to work out the way I need it to work out. And so sometimes we self-sabotage our own success just because we haven't, and then again, sometimes we may not even know we're doing that. But I would tell people, if you don't understand, if you're not where you are, or you keep seeing a pattern, it's just saying that there's something there. There's something in your subconscious that's saying, pay attention, and it's your job to explore it, and many times, like you say, go deep spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I feel like that goes back to, okay, you know what? I know there's something. Maybe I can't put my finger into it.
Yeah.
Let me go back. The creator, go back into, okay.
How does that work for you though? Like
prayer, meditation,
Okay.
Journaling, asking how, show me, like just being in tune, spiritually and talking to my soul, talking to God, so like you say, when you kind of like put yourself in that spiritual space, it just opens doors that you can't even imagine, and so that's what it looks like for me. And then, but for some other people, and I know not everybody kind of like have the same spiritual walk or believe or in or not, but it just means that if you see a pattern happening that you don't want, that means there's something subconsciously happening within yourself that you need to correct. And many times it's something where you don't feel what's the word? Worthy.
you don't. Okay.
You don't feel worthy of receiving that. So it's a self-sabotaging behavior that needs to correct. No, and once you understand the messaging that you're holding, and it could be the voice of somebody else. Maybe it would a voice of a caregiver that say you never amount to anything. And you try to prove that. It could be anything. Or
well, how do you rewire that though?
First, you got to acknowledge it.
Okay.
You can't change what you don't acknowledge. Yeah. But when you acknowledge, you know what? It's not my thoughts. It's the thoughts of X, Y, and Z. Now you can say, you know what? I'm going to give my voice to it. It don't have to be the person, like words or how they treat you don't have to be the end all to be all. Sometimes back then when I was working with victims of like crimes or things of that nature, and sometimes they'll feel like they need to have conversation with the perpetrator in order to feel validated. And then I was like, well, what if the person dead? That means your life's just not continue because of that? Yeah. No, I was like, no, you get to choose your own story. You get to, like you say, retell your story. Because a lot of times we stay in that victimized, position. And then
you see that a lot. It's easier to stay that way.
Of course, it's easier, but then you pay a larger cost because then the cost is I don't get a chance to really enjoy the life I need to be enjoying. I don't really get to enjoy the happiness that I deserve to be in. Yeah. So that's the cost.
But then what do you say about the people who actually have success? Have you ever seen that, right? Because I've seen that, especially in the entrepreneur space, where they're doing well financially, but they're still miserable.
Oh, of course.
So how do you speak to that? Because if you're doing well financially, does that mean, hey, you were able to call in a certain amount of abundance? So how could you still be miserable?
Well, the thing is, so what defines success? Because, success don't always mean money.
Success leaps.
Exactly, right? Exactly, right?
Yeah.
No, but again, it's redefining success. So
okay.
So your entire success is only if how much money you have, then that's not real success. Your success should be in terms of like how fulfilled I am in this life.
Okay.
How aligned I am with my purpose. Money should be like the byproduct of it. You get what I'm saying? But if it's like the only thing, then I don't think the person is really keen in to what real success is, and that's why they're so miserable. But if you understand that your money is not you, and you're not your money. Again, it go back to identity.
Okay. Yeah.
I have, and it goes back. Remember, you asked me about the value. What I think about was it the value of a man or the value? What was the term?
Oh, high value woman.
The high value. Yeah, exact.
Yeah. Or alpha woman.
No. When you're saying the high value man, in terms like with money.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because you would be considered high value woman.
And I go back to like, so what is the definition of high value? And then
this got her ish together, no kids, you're not a baby mama, you don't got that title on you. You know what I'm saying? So that would be considered, according to Kevin Samuels, as high value. So you could pick and choose if you don't want to date the guy that drives the bus.
So then a high value man would be what?
Somebody that earns 6-figure and up. He doesn't have any baby mama drama. He has his ish together, his own place. He don't need to crash at yours. Things like that. I get where he's coming from to a certain extent,
But the thing is, it's cute, what I was mentioning. The thing is, high value to me is like, first of all, the type of person you are.
Okay.
What type of person? Because you could be all that and be do you have fun being around miserable people? Have you been around miserable people?
Yeah.
Is it fun?
Yeah. Like,
Is it fun to be around somebody who's like mischievous?
yeah.
Just don't care about nobody but themselves, selfish. I mean, or
I be seeing them with money, and I be shocked because I be
yeah.
like,
But I'm saying,
man.
do you enjoy being around people like that?
Yeah, no, because I'm trying to learn the game on how you got your money, and I'm hearing drama and this and that. I'm like, I ain't come here for this.
But it goes back to what I'm saying. So you got to redefine what that means. So high value to me is not tying to your money. It's to tie into the person you are, how you show up, what kind of person you are, how you treat other people. That's value, high value to me. And then it goes. Then the next thing is how well you invest in yourself and others. That's the next. So then when you understand who you are, because
how you invest in others.
Yeah, how you invest in yourself and others, because then do you give yourself the proper validation you need? Do you feel that you deserve the best in life?
Yeah.
And do you deserve that best also needs to influence others and inspire others to do their best?
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it goes deeper with that. So then that's why, if you only stick to money, then you blind.
So you would date the bus driver then?
Yes, if the bus driver is like you say, a great person, great personality, and is ambitious and motivated. Because we had that conversation because I'm an ambitious and motivated person.
Yeah. So he can't just want to be the bus driver. He has to want to own the company.
In terms of like own what the company he has.
He has to want to own the Greyhound company.
I mean, he don't necessarily have to
work there.
Well, you don't have to own the company in order to produce the life you want. You don't have to say. You
got to be the VP.
You don't have to be the VP. But what I'm saying is that if I want to, for example, say I'm in the process of building. I want to build generational wealth, legacy. And there's a lot of people who has a lot of money and they're not working. So you don't have to do that. It don't have to. That's the thing. We get so stuck in terms of like, oh, you have to look this way. It doesn't have to look that way.
Okay.
But to have a mindset to say, yes, I want to have a, like you say, build generation.
Yes.
So then it goes, I'm not only taking care of myself, I'm taking care of 2 generation, 3 generation. You're thinking beyond that because you understand that when you get out of yourself, then you start seeing bigger picture.
Yes.
So yeah,
I get what you're saying.
So it doesn't have you don't have to own that, but you have to have a mindset where you want more.
Yeah, you want more. Yeah,
out of life, and then you do the steps, and not just saying you want more, but you're actually applying it, knowledge.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we sit on knowledge that we don't do nothing with.
Yes, that is so true. So, why do you think that happens though, from a psychological standpoint? Why do you think people obtain the knowledge, but then they don't do nothing with it?
It goes back how they see themselves. So again, do I deserve this?
Okay.
Am I worthy of this? And sometimes I hear people say, well, I just don't know how to. But it's not so much not knowing how to, but do you go out and find out how to? The fact that you're okay of staying still and not even say, I don't know, but let me find out how. Yeah. And you're not making any movement, it still goes back to maybe not feeling worthy that you deserve receiving anything that comes with that success. You get what I'm saying? Yeah,
you don't feel deserving of it.
So it's your subconscious, So like you say, whatever you feel like is not happening, go back to self and say, why am I not pursuing X, Y, and Z? Or why am I in this? Why I'm in this space consistently, or do I find myself here occasionally? Whatever the situation is, but find out like, there's a reason I'm here in this space. There's a reason I'm going through this, and life is trying to get my attention. And so if I don't like it, what can I do to change it? Who has what I need? Who has what I have? Yeah. Oh, who has what what I desire? And then find out how you go get it. Don't just stay there, like a plant, and not do anything, Yeah. And then knowing that you deserve work. When I say work on you. You deserve the work. You deserve the transformation.
Yes.
So
you
deserve that. Yeah. You deserve to transform your life. And if you don't feel like you deserve that, then again, start working on your self-esteem. Start working on understanding to unpack. Yeah. Whatever,
unpack. Yeah, I like that word.
Or dealing with the trauma. Sometimes, it comes with trauma that we grew up, from our childhood.
No. It's so true. I think most of our issues, stem from childhood. Trauma. So you have employees for your company, right?
Yes.
How many employees you have now?
Well, it's 2 of us.
Okay. All right. So then that wouldn't go then. Because do y'all got, is it you and another female or you and a guy?
Oh, it's family. Yeah, me and another guy.
Okay. So
and we just do contracts.
so
like
you don't,
subcontractors.
so you don't hire on employees. So you don't hire on employees into the business. You just subcontract them out.
Correct.
Okay. Because
No, depends on what it is.
okay, because I know that's difficult. You know, like when it comes to, because I was going to ask you when it comes to like the hiring process or dealing with your employees, do you kind of like coach them through if they're not able to handle a task or whatever the case may be? Do you sit them down and like talk to them to figure out why they're not able to do a certain job? That's what I was trying to get at.
No, but you could. I mean, the thing is with contract, you have to do that too. Because the thing is, anybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the thing is, if you're working on a project that needs to go a certain way, everybody got to be on the same page. So you have to have that meeting. You have to have to say this is what we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because it's still work, and it's still producing work that you need to be accountable for. And so you got to check all the the boxes to make sure that things happen the way it should be happening. So yes. So the training, and then also it trains other people to see what you see. It trains them to look for what you would look for.
Okay.
So that you don't have to babysit or you don't have to keep saying the same thing. So it's good to always have like a blueprint of this is what it needs to look like.
Yeah.
So then people have a reference point.
A system.
Yeah, system.
Okay.
System always. A lot of times businesses don't fail because they have lack of system.
Yeah.
And especially with the age of technology, like you could optimize your system to do a lot of things where, it frees it free up your time, because I know people who making millions, and then they're only a solopreneur and they just have all system in place, in the same way you might have somebody who might have 20 employees stressed out.
Yeah, because you got to deal with different personalities and everything like that.
And also, the different personalities, but the thing is too is then it's how it's being managed. Yeah. So if you don't if it's not a congruency between the higher ups and the people that's your staff or your contractor people you're working with, then it's going to show up in the job itself. Because people can see like, okay, this organization's going on. Yeah. Because we have
leak somewhere.
There's leak somewhere, and people see that. But if we tune and say, hey, you know what? This is what it looks like. This is the system. And if you have any problems or if you need some, come back to ask questions. Yeah. Because sometimes people are afraid to ask questions. Yeah. And then they make a decision that might be very costly.
Those are people you got to worry out for. Look out for, because it's like they might be afraid to ask questions because they're afraid how they might look. Instead of just saying, hey, let me get to the answer. You know what I mean? Because I don't know.
That goes back with mindset.
Yeah, there you go.
So mindset is an understanding, like, if I don't have the answer I need, then I'll be stuck.
Yeah.
In this place that I don't want to be stuck in.
Yeah, I used to do that back in the day. I ain't even up front.
Well, again, so when you have mindset, when you understand, the more information I get, the more information I allow me to move. So information empowers you. Correct. So I was like, okay, you could choose to stay stuck or you could choose to move forward. Yeah. Regardless of what because people are going to talk to you about you anyways. You're doing good or bad, they're going to talk about you. So we're not even going to work.
Are you a business owner, entrepreneur, entertainer, and you got a story to tell? You want to get your brand out there to the world? Well, you reached the right place. Let's set up an exclusive interview between me and you. I Talk Gray, and we're going to go ahead and get your brand out there to the world. But here what you do. Go ahead and send me an email with the words gray at italkgraymedia@gmail.com. See you soon.
About what people say.
No, that's facts. Yeah.
So do I care about whether or not you talk about me if I'm doing good or bad? Like, not really.
No, you're right. Yeah. So when you started your company, right, did you start it with your money out of pocket or did you use the OPM?
No, my money.
So what made you want to go that route versus saying, I want to start with other people's money?
Because they're just there. It was easier when you have your own money. You don't have to wait for yes. You just make things happen. It's just the flexibility and the access of that. Okay.
So when do you start saying, okay, we reached a point, let's start using other people's money?
Well, it depends on. For example, people always ask, how do I know I'm ready to scale? Mm-hmm. Well, when the amount of work coming in and you can't handle it. Okay. Or you're short staff. Mm-hmm. That means that I need more people on the floor to handle this. Your schedule, you don't even have time for yourself. Yeah. You feel like, hey, you know what? I feel buried. Yeah. And also when you feel like I can do more, I can make more money in revenue, but my system is not in place for me to do that. You know, but I can handle more. You know, so what we do is that we assess where you are, and then we say, okay, this is the system that needs to be in place. Because every system, every business have a different model. Because because the thing is too is that, again, some people might have work with vendors and suppliers. Other people might just work with consumers, products, and merchants and things of that nature, manufacturers. Then you might have somebody who just like, well, I don't really work with anybody. I just put the maybe sell. I'm trying to give an example. I'm thinking, maybe if I'm not working with somebody, I'm just providing guidance, but I don't really have
like
clients.
Consulting?
Yeah, but even with consulting, you have clients that, again, consulting could be differently because you could be hands-on because some people want you to do the work and some people want you to show them how to do the work. So if you have somebody that wants you to do the work, believe me, your hand's going to be full.
Yes.
So it's not as flexible. You won't have the same time as somebody who just, for example, showing somebody how to do it versus doing it, for the person.
Yeah.
But so maybe somebody who just don't deal with a person, who don't have clientele or deal with consumers on a day-to-day business, maybe someone, for example, you have people that give guidance on the stocks.
Okay. Like an advisor.
Yes, an advisor or something where, I'm not managing, and they're not managing somebody. They're just pretty much just giving advice, and maybe they say they sell a PDF or content where they just, again, it's their business model. So, so the thing is it's identifying what business model that works for you, whether or not it's revenue sharing, whether or not is subscription, whether or not is direct client to client contact. So when you identify what business models, that operates best on not only what works for you, also what kind of lifestyle, because we always ask, our clients, what kind of lifestyle you want? Some people want to be hands on. Some people are like, no. Don't call me. Yeah. Unless the house is burned down. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't want to be in the business. Again, they just want to work on the business.
Correct. So everybody have different goals. So you assess what the goals are, and then you build a business from there. So whether or not you want to be more hands-on or hands-off, and then from there, when you choose your business model, then you put all the structures and you put the technology. Okay. That needs to be in place.
Technology.
Yeah, because if you have time to answer like 100 emails daily, do you have that time?
Yeah, no.
or answer, all the people that comes into your DMs.
Yeah, no,
you don't have to do that, right? So there's a lot of things you can automate, and also there's a lot of things you can delegate as well.
When should you? When are you instructing business owners to delegate?
Well, first of all, I think people get the roles not clearly define what a CEO versus manager versus staff do, because a lot of times many people who build their business bootstrapping, we have to wear so many hats, right? Yeah. We're manager, we
everything. We all ships.
We social media person. But then when you start doing that, you limit yourself from growth. That is the fastest way to kill your scaling process, because it's not your job to do all of these jobs. You have to hire other people to do that. You have to delegate that. So the role of a CEO is find deals, close deals, find opportunity to grow the business. Then your manager manage the operation of the business. Manage the staff, manage the orders and everything else, and then you have the staff, based on what kind of business you have, that does their role. Then you have your media person, your social media, depending on your business model. But again, if you try to do everything, then you're limiting yourself. So I tell people that, first of all, the time to know when you need to scale. First, is to define the role. Know which role you want to play.
But do you feel like that's where that business owner may need funding? Because, hey, if you're now starting a business, you may not have the money to pay a flow, so it's like, okay, I might have to learn the marketing. I might have to learn the editing. What do you say to that?
No, I get that, because, I've done it, until I too realized, that I wanted to scale my business. So I get it. So I totally get it. But now we have access to so many resources where we don't have to do that. Okay. So
name three.
So, for example, I know a lot of businesses that using these virtual assistants. Okay. And they're affordable. You have people that's paying $5 an hour.
Okay. You're talking about like, okay, so like some of them that be overseas.
But yeah, overseas, if anything, you know, I know like a friend of mine has a business where he has like 10 VAs working all over from Europe to the Caribbean.
Okay.
You know, and he's a partner with Amazon, and so he makes it work, you know. So, and again, it goes back to your business model. And then you have technology subscriptions.
Yeah.
that can help you do a lot of work where you don't have to do that. And then you have programs where even, the colleges, partner with colleges, you know, and then, you know,
like interns.
Yeah, the interns, they work for free, you know, in terms of that, you know, and then, you know, you do a partnership with colleges and or school programs. And not only that they're building skill set, but especially seniors who are about to graduate, they're going to look for a job. You know, they have skill set that can help your business. So, for example, if they're really great with social media, have that conversation and then you can hire them, you know, you can negotiate it. So it doesn't have to be very costly to how you call it, to rework your business to make it work for you. But if you don't, then it'll be costing you.
What's the most you've invested in your business so far?
The most?
Yeah.
I mean, I invest, $300,000.
Okay. Yeah. And okay, so when you say you invested $300,000, how soon do you expect a return?
Well, the return should be at least within, you get the first 60 days for some return, not all return. I mean, in terms of like incremental, right? Okay. So normally I lay out a map in regards to, okay, for the first 30 days, this is what I expect. For 90 days, this is what I expect. You know, and so a lot of times we don't plan out our, you know, map out our, our system to say, okay, because do you do your KPIs? Do you know, like, hey, this is what I'm targeting. You know, this is what I'm expected to make that. Because again, it's when my business so many moving parts. It's just not my consultant. Is my merchandise, what I sell online, is my speaking, is when I do training. So I sell different products and services, you know. Okay. So then, you know, knowing like, hey, you know what, how many products I could put out there, or how many services I can do for that month, you know, or maybe the first 90 days. You know, so when you start mapping out things, then you start saying, hey, you know what, at least the first 90 days I can get a 30% return.
Okay.
You know, or
I get what you're saying.
Or 6 months, like, you know, et cetera. So it's really how you map. Everything is really system. When you map out, when you have a really great system that works for you, you know, then you work it until you need to evolve. Because, you know, when you evolve, because the same people, for example, that makes, if you're making like $1 million to $5 million, you know, your system going to have to change if you want to get to like 10 to 20 million. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? So you have to evolve as your business evolve. And then the same thing, if you're making 6 figures or under, you know, it's your, which they call the micro businesses. Then you start actually, you know, creating steps where like, okay, let me hit my first 6 figures, you know, this year. Well, how can I do that? Let's work backwards. You know, so what I'm currently selling, you know, what's the most popular product or service that people like? Yeah. And maybe if you first started, you may not know that, you know, but you have to throw things out and see what people likes, right? Yeah. But if you have an idea of what sells, then you can say, okay, let's focus on that, you know, versus, for example, what we do is that sometimes we have so many services and products and then we try to sell all versus saying, okay, what's my number one or number top, you know, and then start really going in with those, you know, those top sellers. And when you hit the numbers, the figures that you have ideally that you want to hit, then you can start branching and going out to the others as well. Yeah. So then you kind of minimize your energy so that you don't really have to spin the wheel and trying to put your energy all. They say you have 10 products. You don't need to put all your energy equally in 10 products. But the best 3, go at it. Yeah. You know, so that's include the ads, your testimonials, you know, the people that say, hey, I tried, it was the best I ever had. Yeah. You know, referrals and, you know, brand sponsorships and partnerships and collabs. Because sometimes we are afraid to go into ask these brands, hey, do you work with small businesses? Yeah. You know, we're afraid to ask that.
Afraid to jump in them DMs.
Yeah, you got, you know, and then the thing is, but also not even the DM. Sometimes you're just Googling, knowing where some of the representatives going to be at. And then showing up and building the relationship. Because maybe that relationship won't materialize instantly, but maybe in 6 months down the line, they might circle back and like, hey, I remember that conversation we had. Yes, I remember too. Yes. When you build relationship, I tell people it's not, and then sometimes the relationship may not just be directly with the person you build it with. It's probably somebody in their network. that may benefit that.
Yeah,
so don't just look at the person right in front of you. Just look at that person represent 20 other people.
No, yeah.
That's
a gem right there.
And the numbers keep, snowballing.
Yeah.
Because that 20 have another 20. Each person have their own 20s.
Yes.
You see how that happened? It's because everything is really math. It's a math game. And it's our job to make the math.
So
if it's not math, it's because there's a system that's not supporting your goal. So when you work backwards and say, okay, what's not working? And a lot of time what I'm focusing on that is not giving me the return I need.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to shift the way I focus and the way I see things. And also sometimes it depends maybe who you work with, because I know sometimes people have to let other people go, because, whether or not.
Yeah.
It happens,
Yeah, it does.
And it's okay.
You can't take everybody with you.
You can't take everybody with you, know, and sometimes you have to trim that fat in order to scale to where you want to go.
Yeah, no, that's so true.
Because what the person going through may not be a great fit at this moment. Maybe they were there just to help you start.
No, that's so true.
Then their mission expired.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it is. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I was reading a book called The Everything Store from Jeff Bezos.
Okay.
And when he was building his business, the people that he started with could only take him so far to where he had to now bring on a whole new other group of people to get it to the next threshold.
And and it happens like that. And it's funny because I remember before Amazon was Amazon, it was half books, I believe. Yeah, I think that's what's the name of the website before it turns into Amazon.
Yeah.
When they were just selling books only. I want to say that it was called Half Books.
Really? Because the name of the book is called The Everything Store.
No, Amazon itself.
Oh, the website itself. Okay.
Jeff Bezos.
Because he has a whole bunch of them.
No, Jeff Bezos started off as selling books only.
Yes.
And I remember I had an account years ago when I was in school of the account. I think it was called halfbooks.com.
Okay.
And I remember getting a notification that it was changing into Amazon. Yeah, so that's a great story because you see where he started selling books only. He didn't thought about, but he evolved there.
Yeah, he evolved,
because he saw a vision. Sometimes you might have a vision that somebody doesn't see.
Yeah,
and sometimes we blame ourselves like, hey, why you aren't see? But
it wasn't for them.
It wasn't for them. And we got to embrace that everything for us is not always for other people, and that's okay.
No, that's so true.
So we got to just sit with that. But so
what does your exit look like? Or are you riding this thing till the wheels fall off?
Well, no. Well, my exit looked like being totally hands off, growing my portfolio and different aspects, so it's not, so even though, like I said, I do the consultant part, I have my products and merchants out there.
I didn't know you had no merch. You bring me a shirt. I wear a small, it's medium, they say.
It's medium.
Yeah.
But also just growing beyond that. Because, like I was saying, going back to real estate.
Yeah.
So going, doing some investment more so in the real estate side.
Okay.
Because, the thing is, too, I just want, again, your money needs to be working for you.
No, that's true.
So I'm in that space. Let your money work for you. And so you don't really have to work harder.
So how are you making your money make money for you?
Well, you tell your money, you invest your money. That's what it is. So you always got to know that every dollar needs a roll.
No, that's true.
So if I said $1,
dollar need a roll.
Every dollar needs a roll.
Yeah.
So when you teach your money, hey, you need a roll. Come back with 10 of you.
No, that's big facts. But where are you putting your money right now? Outside of real estate? Real estate is not really liquid. So, where are you putting your money right now?
Well, it could be liquid. It depends on the strategy, but that's a different conversation.
Okay,
but,
we gotta talk about that.
But in terms of you have business equity. You have the stocks.
How's that doing though right now? Because since Trump been talking about these tariffs, the stock market has been crazy.
No, of course. But one thing we know about the stock is it's going to be there still.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Of course.
So you're gonna ride the waves of up and down. But just to answer what you're saying, so just having diverse portfolio of things that makes money.
Yeah.
You sell insurance, right? Or
fixed index annuities, yeah. Then you have IULs where you can store it, yeah.
Because I know a lot of people using insurance, to build wealth.
Index, yeah.
Yeah, to to increase their cash value. Yeah, so it's different vehicles. You just let your money roll, and so then you don't have to do that. And then also teaching the next generation how to do that. So they don't mismanage the funds, because sometimes what we do is that sometimes we might have a business and we want to give it to our kids or whoever.
They don't know nothing about it, and we didn't teach them nothing.
But we don't teach them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We have to teach them. Even that, and you know how many people I know, seasoned professionals that want to sell their business, but their kids say, I don't want that business.
I'm trying to be an influencer.
Exactly. And I say that's okay, because sometimes,
Is it though?
No, because it's really strategy. Because think about it. Do you think the Hilton? Do you think that all the kids working at the Hilton?
Not all of them. I do think it's still in the family, though.
No, of course. It goes back to the point I was making. It's still in the family, so you can structure where it could be in the family. So your kids don't have to be, they say, a direct, direct worker on the business. You have to structure it where it can still stay in the family. It's all strategies.
Yeah.
And then it still keep it, going from generation to generation.
Yeah.
So that'll be a thing where I hear people like, oh, my son don't want to do the business. Oh, my daughter don't want to do it. And then I was like, well, don't they have to, because they have to live their own life. But you can still put them, it could be, a role. They could still have a role.
Have a role in the business.
And then somebody else run the business.
No, that's true. But I feel like a lot of times when parents, when their children say that they don't want to be in the business, they probably weren't, as involved with the children in that way, because they probably were so focused on the business, so they didn't have time to kind of do that parenting. So they kind of probably built their own isolation and was like, man, I don't want nothing to do with that. Correct.
It could be that, and it could be that the person, the kid's like, no, I already know what I want to do, and it's not that. I
want to be a video gamer.
I don't want to do that. I don't know why you keep forcing. And then argument happens, and like, arguments don't need to happen. You just need a strategy.
I don't know. Everything this generation is different, though. These kids don't want to do nothing.
The thing is, with anybody you want to motivate to do something, you find out what motivates them. That's the power of influence. It's like, okay, if I find out what you want, then I can find out, and then I know what I already want.
Yeah.
Then we can make, then we gonna find some way to make it work. So
I know you had told me, I don't know how you dodged this bullet.
Which one?
You said you don't have any children.
Oh yeah, no,
so that's why you're high value.
Really? Okay, so children. So you have kids, you're not high value?
Nah, you done ran through now. No, I'm just playing.
Negative.
No. I'm just playing. But that's how people would see it. Like, oh wow, she doesn't have any children. So you're not coming with the baby daddy drama. You don't have that baby mama title. You got women out here getting married just because they don't want that title. I mean, I know you don't believe in that, but it's a real thing.
I know it's a real thing.
I was looking at a post with Tracy Ellis Ross.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that?
I see it, a skit.
Where she was speaking about the grief of not having kids.
Yeah.
Do you experience that, or was that an intentional thing until you reach your millions? I'm not saying, I don't know if you reached that already.
You mean like grieving? No, you remember, so Tracy's older than me, so.
Well, yes.
So, so she's in a space where.
She's like 50. That's young still.
And the thing is, too, women, I know personally women.
Yeah, my mom.
Who had
she
kids
had
in
my
their
little
50s.
brother. Yeah.
Okay, so it can be, Yeah. So, but again, maybe I don't know what her particular story or thing is. If but it doesn't stop her. Then how do we define mother? She can adopt, or there. And now you have a lot of medical practices where women are getting pregnant.
Yeah.
With so it depends. So maybe because she says it's over. But maybe
she's like, she don't have no kids, she ain't got no man. So sometimes she feels, her success
limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that if she really wanted to pursue those things, there's many options available where she could still realize those things.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of women in her position, and even older than her, that are able to say, hey, I'm a mother now, and I have a partner.
Yeah.
So again, you have people who still dates not to say you wait that long, till they're 95. The other day, it was somebody who's 95, and they threw a wedding.
What? Hold on, they were getting married?
At 95, yes.
Wow.
So that's like you say. This is it.
Hey, you living your life.
No, yeah. I'm like, don't put no limits yet.
Yeah.
To to what could possibly be.
No, you're right. I like that.
No
limits.
Yeah, no limits. And the thing is too, I think she still have opportunity to make something happen if she really wants to. So many options available she can explore. But if she already create a mindset to say, oh, it's it. This is it. This is
my eggs. You know what I mean?
This is it. Then
I get what you're saying. Though.
Yeah, because even mean, especially with procedures, I hear people who are getting, like people are exchanging ovaries. They have, ovaries transplant.
Yeah.
Or people, transferring eggs to other people. I'm just saying there's options out there. If you really, really want it, it could be done.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Versus, like, say, 20 years ago, I could, it could have been something like, okay, I could see. But now,
anything can happen now.
Now everything happens. You see, yeah, because even I think it was Africa, the oldest. It was an 80-year-old that just gave birth. You saw that story? Yeah. I mean, I don't recommend it, but I'm just saying it's out there.
That's crazy.
Yes, it
is.
Okay.
Well, hey, man, this was so good, Queen. We might have to do a part 2. You might have to come on the podcast, be a co-host with me. Didn't you do podcasting before?
Yeah. I've done my own personal, and then I've been on other people's podcasts.
Okay, that's why. Yeah, because me and you, we need to do a whole Joe Rogan joint, like where it's just 3 hours and you just here talking. But I don't want to hold you up. I want you to get back to the money. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
Of course, my company is Success Leaps. So it's www.successleaps.com. Or you can email me at florence@successleaps.com. Leaps is LEAPS.com.
I like that. She got the business email too, not the Gmail, not the AOL.
Yeah, let me say something about that, because I tell people all the time about the Gmail, and I sometimes get pushed back with like,
those are flags, those business flags.
Huh?
Those are business flags.
For a lot of people, I've been around in the back end where big corporation making decision on hiring people are saying, "Oh my God, are they still using Gmail and they sending this proposal at a Gmail next?" Wow. And I'm in the background seeing that. And I tell people, and I would tell people who still have a Gmail, I was like, hey, you know what? They look at it, and a lot of times they're like, oh, but I still exist. I'm like, yeah, but you still get business, but you don't know other kind of business that you can do.
Yeah,
that was
business at this level.
Because their perception is, if you're not investing in yourself, why you want me to invest in you?
That's the
hold on. That's the perception. And again, I've seen people who decision makers that ask people out because they use gmail.com.
Wow. Okay, so I got to get on top of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm still using Gmail.
Oh, really? Don't leave no table on the money, Wayne.
You are
so right.
The money. No, you're right. I'm about to listen to this whole interview again because you dropped some sauce here today.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me.
No, of course I had to get you on. You're going to be back on here again.
Okay,
you got
awesome.
to. Y'all already know what it is. It's Mr. Williams with the I Talk Great podcast, and we out of here. Yeah.
Peace.